Hello and welcome to Calibre Conversations, our online book festival where we chat to a range of authors in the hope of introducing you to books to add to your reading list and get you enjoying more books in National Year of Reading. My name is Emma and I'm delighted to be chatting to best-selling author Carole Matthews, whose uplifting titles have won her a legion of fans and include Happiness for Beginners, Sunny Days and Sea Breezes, which won the Romantic Novelists Association Award for Romantic Comedy of the Year in 2021, and not forgetting where it all started with Let's Meet on Platform 8. So first of all, a really big hello and welcome to you, Carole.
Hello, good morning.
So we like to jump in and get to know you a little bit first of all. So what I just wanted to ask was, I read that you've described yourself as a writer of romantic comedy, a drinker of champagne, a baker of cakes and eater of chocolate. So which of those activities help you unwind the most?
Well, bizarrely, one of the things that isn't listed is walking. So, so you see, I like to keep some secrets. So we do a lot of hiking, and I think that's probably my most relaxing thing. And I went through the whole cake baking thing when I had a book out called Cake Shop in the Garden. And do you remember, like, really elaborate cupcakes were in fashion, and they used to have all these different flowers and things on top. And I got really into that. So I used to bake loads and loads of cakes, and then you kind of run out of people to give them to if you don't want to eat them all yourself. So baking took a kind of backseat, and then I took up crochet. So I should change that to a blanket crocheter. So I do. I'm a mad crochet fiend.
Wow.
So yes, I do a lot of blankets quite a lot for charity, and foist those on friends as well.
Oh,
but yeah, I
fabulous.
think our main thing is to really get away from it. I mean, I used to do a lot of exciting and glamorous things, in my book career. But I was always happiest walking across the field with a backpack and some sandwiches and a flask of coffee. And yeah, it's the small things in life, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose if you are eating cakes and having chocolate and drinking champagne, it's a good way to walk it off.
It is, yes. It's kind of a bit of balance.
That's a great life answer. Now, your books, they are set in so many different locations, from Leighton Buzzard and Aylesbury to the Isle of Wight to Nepal. So how do you decide where to set your novels? And do you get inspired to see your stories develop in the places that you've been as well?
Well, the funny thing was, I got my first break in publishing because it was at the start of the whole chick lit thing, slightly before Bridget Jones, and I'd written a book set in Leighton Buzzard about somebody who meets a man while she's commuting from Leighton Buzzard to Euston, which I did on a daily basis at one point, although I never did meet anybody as romantic as my hero. And when I submitted it, it was unusual because a lot of the early chick lit books were about people in publishing working in London and having kind of glamorous lives, and mine was very ordinary and it was set in Leighton Buzzard, and that was kind of the hook. They were like, oh well, we haven't actually got any ordinary books about people's daily lives, and so that was kind of my into publishing, the fact that it wasn't a glamorous location, not slighting Leighton Buzzard because I lived there, but and then over the years, it was. We did a lot of travelling, so sometimes it was sparked by being in a particular place, or sometimes that's just where the story kind of led. Really, quite a lot of them are about women wanting to achieve something. They're not all about women wanting to find a man who fixes their lives. It's generally about women who find something that fixes themselves, and a lot of that was to do with travel or going out there and doing different things. Some of them were also about eating cake. So I kind of like to have a bit of a range.
And I think as well, it's when people can relate to sort of activities like that, cake making, or they can recognise a place. It makes it so much. You get so much more into the book as well if you can recognise your, the
place.
the
people love it,
to.
And particularly, I mean, the funny thing is when I used to run out of money, my books were set in Milton Keynes. And when I'd just been paid, we're like, right, where can we go now? So there is a lot of that to do with it. But people do love it when they recognise places, or they think they recognise people. Is another lovely one. People message me and they think, "Oh, I know that person." You think, "Well, you don't," but lovely.
Well, actually, following on from that, so we always announce on our socials whenever we're interviewing an author to see what kind of questions people might like to ask themselves, and we receive lots of responses from your army of readers. One of which is from Rachel, who said, "I know you're a big fan of the theatre. Have you ever written a novel within that setting? If you have, I must have missed it, but if you haven't, would you? I've read many of your books and I've loved them all."
Oh, that's very nice. I set one in the opera. Which kind of, is a very odd branch of the theatre world. And we were very lucky. It was called Welcome to the Real World. And it was the difference between somebody who had been an opera singer to somebody who had won one of these kind of Britain's Got Talent type contests, and the difference in their kind of lives. And I was very lucky that the Welsh National Opera gave me access, kind of open door access to all of their performances for a year. So we spent a lot of time in Cardiff going to opera every week, to the point that I never ever want to see one again.
Were you a fan of opera before, or was it?
I liked it, but yes, I mean, and I like the kind of popular ones, but we did see some very kind of should I say, more challenging performances of opera that, we got to the point we were kind of singing about everyday life, It's like, no, let's not do this. So I've set that, and that was one of my, it's kind of a funny book, because it came out when I was just changing publishers, and so it kind of missed everybody. So it's one of my hidden books, really.
Oh.
If you haven't caught that one, it's also one of my favourites, Welcome to the Real World. And we were talking about it the other day, actually, because one of my first childhood memories was seeing Aberfan on the television, and I wanted a reason why my Welsh hero left the valleys, and so we drove out of Cardiff and kind of got looking for a bit of inspiration in the valleys, and came across Aberfan, and so that was his reason for leaving Wales and trying to make a career outside of his hometown, and that was a very, very moving thing. And again, a lot of people wrote to me after that and said I'd handled it really nicely, which is always kind of a nice thing to hear. But yeah, so I do draw on kind of my books are funny and light, but sometimes they have an emotional kernel to them that kind of brings people up short.
Well, that's kind of good news for Rachel then, to know that there's a book.
There is a book, yes.
And so again, following on from that, really. So, if you could adapt one of your books into a play for the theatre, is there one that you would choose, and why that might work well?
Well, we've kind of gone down the road a few times with film and theatre and goodness knows what, and we've had a musical in development for 10 years, I think. Of the Chocolate Lovers Club, which again, where I wrote 4 books in that series, and I get a lot of emails from people saying, when's the next one coming out? Because they're the characters I still think about. It was 4 women who met because of their mutual love of chocolate, and I had a lot of fun with those books. And they would.
Another of your interests coming out as well.
I know, chocolate. Yeah, I put on a stone doing research for that. I suffered for my art with that book.
It's a hard life, though.
It's terrible. We did some wonderful chocolate things. It was fabulous. And yeah, I really, really loved those books, and they are favourites. They're my biggest sellers worldwide, I would say. So a lovely composer and writer were making that into a musical, but it's just so hard. It is just so hard to get funding for anything. So we get so far, and then, it comes down to getting some money for it, and it all goes pear-shaped. So I can't see it ever making the stage, which is really sad, because I think it would make a really good... think it'd make a good Netflix series, if there's any Netflix producers listening.
Definitely.
It's hard, though. It's just so hard to get everything, anything gone to.
Because there have been sort of rumours of other sort of stage and screen adaptations of your books as well.
Yes, I've sold quite a few, and they've never come to it. I think For Better For Worse was the first one, which was wonderful. A guy called Bill Mechanic, who had been the producer of Titanic, had been asked to leave because, if you remember, Titanic had gone so fabulously over budget. Yeah. So I think he was shown the door, and he set up his own independent. The first book that he bought was For Better For Worse, and we went a long way to getting that on the screen, and then it just all kind of fizzles out. So it's hard, it's tough, yeah. So when anybody says, no, I want to buy your book for film rights, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I used to be thinking, oh, Porsche, new conservatory, lovely, but no.
One day, hopefully, one day.
My care home fees at this rate.
Well, we've actually, so going back to your readers' questions, there have been so many of them that have been asking really the same sort of thing, because it's been a while since you published your last novel, which was Christmas for Beginners. So might there possibly be any more stories to look forward to from you?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things I've done 34 books over 27 years, something like that, and not to say it was a treadmill, but a treadmill that I enjoyed. Latterly, I was doing 2 books a year, so I would literally finish one on a Friday, say, and start one on a Monday. Wow. Okay. So, and you're writing one, promoting one, editing a different one, and researching the next one all at the same time. And so your brain does become a bit all consumed by it, really. And we were so busy, again, people would say, do you want to come out or do whatever? And I'd say, oh, yes, I've got an afternoon free in 3 months. But it kind of just becomes normal, doesn't it? Yeah. And then COVID happened, and I was convinced we were all going to die. And I was convinced I was going to be at the top of the list because I'm asthmatic. And we just didn't know, did we? It was just the most hideous time. And I gave a book in the July, and then I was out of contract. And for the first time ever, we sat in our garden and we did our hours, walk that we were allowed outside, and we were very naughty. We passed gin over the fence to next door, and they passed us hamburgers back.
Oh, good. That's a pretty good offering.
I thought, but they were, our neighbours were so gorgeous. They isolated very, very strictly, and so Kevin likes to get prescriptions for them and shopping and things like that. And every 2 weeks they used to bring us a roast dinner round on a tray and leave it on our step, and it was so people kind of adapted, didn't they, in different ways. And it was so the first time we kind of sat there, and I thought, I could actually do this. Why am I spending 60 hours a week in an office in front of a computer making up stuff about people that don't exist?
We were very appreciative of that, though.
And I enjoyed it. I'm not moaning about that at all. I did it, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved the writing. But, life is short. And we were very fortunate we didn't lose anybody, but we know, I had close friends that lost family and things like that. And it suddenly does kind of change how you feel. And so I kind of thought, I'll not take a contract and step back from it and see how I am, which was quite nerve-wracking. I had a friend who was a business consultant who counselled me. She was a business coach, and kind of had long chats with her on the phone about whether I was going to miss it or whatever. But my publishers were fantastic. They said, look, the door's wide open. Whatever you want to do, just, come back when you want to. But then, in the interim, we've just filled our lives up. We I accidentally got an allotment. And I was interviewed in a similar fashion to this at a music club that we went to after lockdown. And again, I had to be dragged out the door to kind of meet with people again. I'd, kind of gone right off people. And
But sometimes that's it, isn't it? You've gone so far one way where you're just sort of nose to the grindstone all the time, and you stop. You forget to appreciate things.
You
around
do,
you. And I
you
think
really
that's
do. And so after COVID, again, my friends kept saying, "Oh, come to this jazz club," and I just didn't want to go out at all. I was quite happy sitting in my garden, not talking to anybody. And so in the end, I said to Kevin, "Right, come on, we've got to go out because otherwise, we'll never get out of the house." And we went, and they had an artist coming on called Tom Seals, who's a fabulous boogie-woogie pianist. And he does a series of interviews where it's a bit like Desert Island Discs, where he will ask you your favourite music and why it was relevant to your career and all that. And then him and his band play their version of it. And we became great pals as it was. So I did that interview for them at the music club and never left. So we now, again, Kevin, my husband, helps with the kind of cameras and lighting and lifting heavy objects, and I brew up. So I kind of turned into Mrs. Overall.
Which is an important job, though.
It really is. Keep the band lubricated. Yeah. So we that's filled a lot of our time, which we love. We really enjoy doing that. And as I say, we do a lot of hiking. So life has taken us in a very different direction at the moment. But that's not to say, one day if I wake up and have a fabulous idea that I won't go rushing back to my desk. But nothing has motivated me to do that so far.
So it's never say never, but there's lots of other things.
It's never say never,
Yeah.
no. And I mean, a couple of the books, certainly the Chocolate Lovers Club, there is another book fleshed out. But it's whether I could go back to the office. Gives me hives if I have to go and answer an email now.
Now, you're also the well-deserved recipient of an Outstanding Achievement Award given to you by the Romantic Novelists Association, which was back in 2015. What did it mean to you to be recognised in that way?
Oh, it was so lovely. It was really, really nice. One of my life highlights. But I'd been nominated for so many things and never won. I think they had to give me something in the end. It was really nice because I started out with another writer of romantic comedy called Jill Mansell. And Jill and I's careers had always shadowed each other. And I know her really well, and she's really, really lovely. And we'd always kind of we were at the same publisher for a while and things like that. And so they gave me and Jill the award on the same evening. So that was really, really lovely to share it with her too. So that was nice. And Barbara Taylor Bradford presented us with our award.
Wow.
So, she's romance royalty.
She is, absolutely.
So that was really nice to meet her, and she was very charming. And still doing it, gosh, I can't remember how old she was then, but of considerable years. And you think, gosh, good for you. Really, really good. So that was lovely. It was a really nice evening. And I got a very posh award, and I was in a very posh frock, and Kevin, who is more at home in T-shirt and jeans, was in his posh suit. And we were staying at a really, really fancy hotel in London. We'd pushed the boat out. We were staying at the top of the Shard. We had one of the rooms in the clouds. And on our way back, we were starving. And so we went to McDonald's. I said, well, can I either go and get room service in the hotel and it'll take forever, or let's go to McDonald's. So we sat in McDonald's in our party clothes with my award, having Mackie D and chips.
What a great photo opportunity that is.
So I like to keep it real.
Yeah, no, so true. That is the way to end a night there.
But I think with any award, there's no award that's better than getting one from your peers. Yeah, so that was really nice to be acknowledged as somebody who'd been around a while.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and very well deserved. And so carrying on with sort of the reading theme, really. So this year, as I already mentioned, is National Year of Reading, and we're really looking to encourage and introduce as many people as possible to different books and authors to either sort of ignite or kickstart their reading habit. So with that in mind, can I just ask you what book or books or even an experience that kind of opened your world and made you a reader sort of at a younger age?
Well, it was at a young age. I mean, as I'm an only child, so I was a bookworm right from the get-go to the point my mum was having to buy books for the school because I was whapping through them at such a rate. I kept coming home and I said, read this one, I've read this one. So my mum was buying books for the school just to kind of keep my pace of reading turned
amazing.
over. Yeah. So
what a lovely mum.
Yeah. So that was kind of my early experience of reading. And I mean, it was heartening to see the other day that the number of kids reading is going up, because it was going a bit dodgy at one point, wasn't it? Then, reading wasn't the pastime that it was. So it's lovely to see that on the increase.
Yeah,
again.
It's been at an all-time low, which is kind of one of the reasons for National Year of Reading. But hopefully,
in terms of reading as I grew up, it was anything and everything. From Enid Blyton, Black Beauty, and then in teen years, things like Catcher in the Rye, stuff like that. So. Yeah, it's still very eclectic choice of reading, although I'm firmly in a historical groove at the moment. I'm reading Alison Weir's series, The Six Queens. So, and I'm only halfway through Catherine Aragon, so I'm going to be there for a little while.
No, she's got quite a tome of work. So, and you've got the non-fiction and the fiction. Yeah. So they're really excellent choice. That is. Yeah. So, absolutely.
But it's lovely. It really is nice to know that there's going to be a concerted effort this year to get people back reading again. Yeah, just kind of just reading for fun and enjoyment, and sort of the pleasure of it in terms of We're competing with so many other things now that we can't be complacent. We have to compete with those things, which is why people always say to me they really like my books because they're short chapters, and that is a deliberate thing on my part. Because people think, I just can read one before I go to bed. Oh, then I could just read another one. And, I hate leaving a book halfway through a chapter. So it's not a daunting prospect to read one of my books because they're fast.
That's what, I haven't read a fair amount of your books. Yeah. I have to say, I've sort of missed times where I should be making dinner and things like that. 'Cause I'm just like, just one more chapter.
Yeah, one more chapter. That's the key. Try and keep the chapters short. So you think, the next one's only a couple of pages. I could just do that as well.
Brilliant. No, love that. So your books also cover some emotional topics which are perfectly balanced and offset with bucket loads of humour. When you're writing, how do you manage to strike that right balance between addressing the turmoil of a situation and being able to see the laughter and the hope on the other side of it?
Well, I think with some of the books, they have a kernel of a true story at the heart of them. And one of the main ones for that really was Paper Hearts and Summer Kisses. My friend Christine has a son who at the time was struggling with a brain tumour. And she and I have been friends for years. And when it was my 25th book party, she brought me along a little crafting machine because I also do a lot of paper crafts. And I said, well, this is lovely, darling, but, what is it? And she said, well, I'll come up and show you. And so she got me into doing all that thing. And then I knew that her and Elliot were going through just an awful time with all his treatment and everything. But some of the things that she was telling me that they were doing to kind of alleviate the stress were really funny. And we went out one evening and she was telling me all about how he was getting on. And I said to her, could I write this as a book? And she said, how are you going to make my friend's and my son's brain tumour a funny story? And I said, well, will you trust me with it? And she agreed. And so that became the book. And I sent her, as I wrote it, I sent her every chapter for approval, which she thought was very moving for both of us, really. We both end up in tears kind of discussing it. And they had a happy ending, thankfully, and they got their happy ending in the book. And then when the book came out, we did loads of promotions together, and Elliot came along to the launch and various things, and we had a lovely time. And so, but that is a really difficult story at the heart of it, and it is nice when people write to you and say, I've gone through this or that and relate to it, and it's kind of helped them see the funny side, because gosh, if you don't, you would just cry, wouldn't you?
I think that's why it resonates with so many people, because that's what essentially that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to see the lighter side of something sort of that can be quite devastating and find the hope at the other end of it. So humour is a great way of sort of carrying you through.
It is, and I'm a giggler. I can't help it. I'm terrible. So I do find the funny things in the sad things. It's sometimes there's not much separating it, is there? Really?
No, not at all.
So I think that's why people do take my books to heart. In that the other one that was like that was The Difference a Day Makes too. So true stories at the heart of them. Yeah. So, and I'm very, very glad that people share their stories with me, which is lovely.
Yeah, no, that's lovely, and it's nice to see that people are kind of relating to your stories as well, and finding that sort of help from it as well too, I guess, in a way. Carole, thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope we've encouraged our members and listeners to discover your books if they haven't yet. The good news is, as we've said, that if you haven't come across Carole before, then there are over 30 titles to work through. Carole's books are the absolute perfect antidote to a bad day, and let's face it, any book that has the opening line, "One of the alpacas has eaten the baby Jesus," as seen in Christmas for Beginners, cannot fail to make you want to read on. So if you're a Calibre member, you can discover Carole's titles amongst our audiobook collection, with more also being added just recently too. Or else you can head to a library or bookshop near you. To keep up to date with Carole's latest news, including what's going on in your allotment, I should think, then you can find her on the socials, on X at Carole Matthews, Instagram at matthews.carole, and Facebook at Carole Matthews Books. So that only leaves me to say a really big thank you, Carole, to you coming in today. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's been really lovely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.